Hi everyone, this is the Grand Duke Dmitri 1921 Diary Series. Um, I am William Lee, if you don't already know that, and we are up to the 18th of April 1921. It's a Monday, and a recap for the previous diary entry, the second part of the longer diary entry of the 17th of April. Dmitri had just returned with Chanel from Vichy. They'd gotten back to Paris after a long drive, and he was just overjoyed to be back with his sister, and a little dissatisfied with the parting that evening with Coco when she dropped him off at his place, and they just shook hands, and it wasn't what he had been expecting, apparently, even though that was basically the way they had been with each other throughout the duration of their trip to the south of France. And so I'm not sure why he expected something different. But anyway, today's cast includes Shagubatov, Dmitri's adjutant, more or less. Obviously, neither one of them was in the military anymore. And then we have the two women, Maria and Coco, who at this point are like two poles of Dmitri's existence, two poles, the two female poles of his existence. Okay, so here we go with the 18th. Shagubatov came in the morning, of course, but first I did some writing and then went shopping with him to buy Maria some birthday presents. I already had one gift for her, a bag I had ordered from Coco made of a sandal and with her monogram on it, but I wanted to get her a silk shawl because she really loves those. I bought one, though it was frightfully expensive, around 6,000 francs. I had lunch at Maria's and afterwards took a drive with her in the Bois. The weather had become a little better. I dined with Coco that evening, and she didn't try to conceal her sadness that our trip had come to an end. It was a little awkward for me because I couldn't reply in quite the same spirit, because for my part, I was very glad to be back. We had our dinner in a private area at La Ruse and then went straight to her place at the Ritz, where I stayed quite late, getting home only around 2 o'clock in the morning. All right, so there we go. Before we dive into Coco and Maria, it's an interesting relationship also with Shagubatov, and I'm not sure, to be 100% transparent, I'm not sure if he had been a military adjutant or like a private secretary to Dmitri before the revolution. But at any rate, the last time he went off on a trip, it was Shagubatov who took care of his flat, and he seems to do a lot of activities with Shagubatov. They have lunch together, and now they're going shopping together. So he's just kind of a buddy, I guess, but it also seems like whether or not Dmitri is paying him anything, he's taking his job seriously, if you can call it a job, to be Dmitri's sort of civilian adjutant in Paris. And so Dmitri adds, of course, Shagubatov came in the morning. But anyway, so much for Shagubatov at the moment. I really haven't been able to find much about him, and I'm always hoping that I'll find more. Now, on to Coco and Maria. So, what is Dmitri getting for Maria? Well, I had to look up what sandal is, and it is apparently a weave that's a combination of silk and very fine linen, and it's most often used for liturgical vestments and things like that. So a little odd for it to be used for a bag. And Dmitri uses a Russian word that I think of something like a burlap sack or a potato bag, not like a purse or something fancy. But obviously, um, Coco was making these bags, and they were, of course, not potato bags, and they were not burlap bags. And Dmitri had ordered one for Maria with her cipher, with her monogram, and it was undoubtedly very nice. And I wonder if any of her descendants now have that bag. And then Dmitri, of course, informs us that she really loved shawls, silk shawls. So we wanted to get her one of those. And I was trying to think if I had ever seen a photo of her in a shawl. And it's possible, but I don't have a specific recollection. But her brother certainly would have known what her tastes were. And unfortunately, he doesn't tell us what shop he found this shawl in. It really was quite extravagant. I've never looked up to see what 5,000 francs was worth in 1921, what it would be worth nowadays. But I know when he won 5,000 francs at the casino, he considered that a really big win. So he was being rather extravagant with this for a man who was in debt. But yeah, he really wanted to get something really nice for his sister, I guess. And then we have the evening and the night with Coco. So they, even though their parting was a little anticlimactic and a little indifferent the night before, they're right back with each other again, spending a significant amount of time with each other. And in fact, I don't recall them ever spending the whole night together on the trip to Monte Carlo. Not the whole night in the sense of overnight, but I can't remember. Yeah, okay, maybe once or twice I could have forgotten, but pretty much they were not spending either the morning or the night together. They would, as you know, they would go for a drive, then have dinner, and then go to bed early every night. At least Coco went to bed early every night, and Dmitri mostly did. So actually, being back in Paris, they're escalating maybe a little bit, although I don't see any insinuations in the way Dmitri phrases it. But who knows? Anyway, he's there till about 2 a.m. And what about this statement that he makes when they're at dinner, that Coco doesn't try to conceal her sadness? She doesn't. She's letting him know that, she wishes the trip had gone on longer. Whereas he feels like it would be dishonest of him, clearly. I couldn't reply in quite the same spirit because I wanted to go home. So, is there any subtext in this? I can tell you that Dmitri had a bit of a tendency when it came to this with women. He had a bit of a tendency to think, she's in love with me, but I'm not in love with her. And I don't know if he was right about that in the instances when he talked about that, which was with more than one woman, although I really think a one that immediately springs to mind is Lucia or Lucia Marling, Lady Marling, because he said that more than once. Yeah, she's head over heels in love with me, and yeah, I'm not that into her. So he had that tendency. So maybe he's doing that with Coco. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's not. I wish I could say one way or another. Maybe some of you who know Coco better than I know Coco. But as far as I know, she didn't leave a diary or even memoirs. I don't know. Anyway, if any of you have any insight on that, please let me know. But it's kind of typical for Dmitri to think that women are more into him than he's into them. And he did have a little bit of a hard time connecting with people. So, maybe it was true. And maybe it's not just him being conceited, but maybe, it's just the way things are. Okay, so what do we have next time? Well, interesting. The 19th of April is Maria's birthday, and she's not just having a nice cozy party or even a sizable party. There's going to be a ball, and there's going to be some conflict with the little sisters, with the little half-sisters that I find very interesting because they're dragged off to the ball and they do not want to go. And we'll find out more about that. It's a long diary entry. It's probably probable that I'll do it in 2 parts, but we'll see. And I invite you to come back for that and hope you will. And I'll see you next time. Bye.